morning. The Committee on Appropriations is called to order. Noting the absence of a quorum, sergeants, if you could be so kind enough to please call the absent members. Members, we have before us today a total of 48 measures before the Appropriations Committee. We have not a large order to deal with today. We have 16 candidates that are for suspense, 11 or 10 right now that are candidates for consent, and we have 21 do pass as amended. As always, I want to welcome the illustrious Vice Chair of the Appropriations Committee, that being Senator Jim Nielsen. Good morning. Good morning, Senator. We're going to get going right now. It is 9:07 or 9:08 a.m. We have members on this committee, both Democrats and Republicans, that have places to be, have people to see. They got bills to present, so we're going to move this quickly. I expect to be out of here in about 1 hour maximum. Therefore, Mr. Leno, Senator Leno, good morning. Chair of Public Safety.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. Thank you for letting me present on SB 585. This is a district bill, and what it will do is over the next few years phase out gun shows at the Cow Palace. Now, let me give you just a little bit of background on this. This came from community meetings in the neighborhoods surrounding the Cow Palace, which straddles the county border between San Francisco and San Mateo, though it is a state-owned property. These neighborhoods surrounding the Cow Palace are experiencing some of the highest rates of gun violence in the state of California. And through these community meetings, among the many priorities that they identified, first and foremost, they wanted to phase out these gun shows at the Cow Palace. Now, keep in mind, not unlike the county of Los Angeles and the county of Marin and Alameda and San Mateo.
Mr. Leno, if I could just ask you just to pause 1 quick second. I believe from Madam Secretary that we have a quorum. Let's establish that quorum. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
De Leon.
Present.
Nielsen.
Present.
Almiano. Calderon. Cotto. Davis. Duvall. Fuentes. Hall. Harkey. Miller. John Perez. Skinner. Solario. Strickland. Torlixon.
Mr. Leno, we have a quorum.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
So, as I was saying, not unlike the counties of Los Angeles, Alameda, and Marin, San Mateo and San Francisco's County Board of Supervisors have passed local ordinances banning gun shows on county-owned property. But I'm here before you today because of this anomalous situation. This little spit of land on the border between San Mateo and San Francisco counties is state-owned, and so it's not within the power of the local elected officials to do just that which their constituents would like. They've gone a step further. Both county boards of supervisors have unanimously passed resolutions urging the state legislature to do exactly that which this bill would do. So this really is about local control and respect for community values and community standards. There's a middle school that sits just 500 feet from this gun show at the Cow Palace, and the gun violence there is so severe. There are children literally afraid to sleep in their beds at night because of stray bullets. They sleep on the floor or under their beds. And the
Move the bill.
prevalence of
We have
guns,
a motion, Mr. Leno, by Mr. Solorio and a second by Mr. Amiano.
I'll conclude very quickly.
Go ahead.
is demonstrated by the flashing neon sign that says guns, guns, guns every time this show comes to the neighborhood. The neighbors would just like it gone. I respect the fact that there is a market for the products, the ammunition, and the guns that are sold at the Cow Palace, but I would be certain that the market demand would make sure that these products are available at some other show where it is wanted. So I would just ask for you to respect the district voice here and those who are suffering the gun violence in these neighborhoods.
Thank you much, Mr. Leno. Supporters, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Casey Kaneko of Souter & Associates on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco. And San Francisco has invested heavily in prevention and public safety efforts. And if I can make one fiscal argument to the committee, that would be that the residents surrounding the Cow Palace feel that they are taxpayers. They pay their taxes just like all the other residents of the city, but they are not afforded the same level of public protection that residents who live elsewhere because of the location of the Cow Palace and the fact that the city ordinance does not apply to this one locale. So we urge your support for the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other supporters? Seeing none, those in opposition? Because there are 5 or 6, I'm going to ask you to be either A, very brief, or pick straws. And who's going to speak a little longer?
Mr. Chairman, Louis Brown on behalf of the Western Fairs Association in opposition to the bill. While we appreciate the concerns of Senator Leno, we have concerns dealing with the lost revenue and focusing on the fiscal issues for this committee that would impact the Cow Palace. The bill, as stated, would phase out these gun shows and then require the Cow Palace to replace these shows. That's not necessarily the way it works in the entertainment booking business. We don't necessarily book gun shows just because we want to. We book them because we have the space, we have the space available, and we need the revenue. The revenue generated from these gun shows cannot necessarily just simply be replaced by going out and finding other shows. Now that the Fairs and Exposition Fund that provides baseline operational support for district ag associations in the state is generated from the general fund, we are concerned that any lost revenue from these shows not replaced by other shows will have a negative impact on the general fund, and believe that it is an appropriate issue for this committee to address and vote no. Thank you
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Mr. Chairman, good morning. Kathy Lynch, representing Crossroads of the West Gun Shows, Outdoor Sportsmen's Coalition, California Sportsmen's Lobby, Safari Club International, National Shooting Sports Foundation, and the California Association of Firearms Retailers, all in strong opposition to this bill. That's been around for over a decade. We do note that prior analysis over the last 10 years have keyed this at over $175,000. And we note, too, that in 2004, the revenue for the Cow Palace was $800,000, and it has dropped to $750,000 in recent years. So while Mr. Leno's amendment is an attempt to phase out, I think that you have to consider what is the marketing cost going to be for the Cow Palace to try to attract other venues. If you look at their calendar now, they have a lot of open show dates at that facility already. While he wants to argue this is a local issue, this is a state facility, and there are many gun shows that occur at many of the state venues around the state. This will set a very bad precedent in the wrong direction. We all know that the state is looking at selling state properties, and this decreases the real estate value greatly.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next one right now because I think you have 4 or 5 witnesses. Mr. Paredes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Sam Paredes, representing Gun Owners of California. We have one other additional issue that needs to be considered, and that is the fact that there are actually contracts in place with the vendors and the Cow Palace itself, and this bill will, in effect, cause a breach of contract, and that is a constitutionality issue that the state legislature is going to have to consider in canceling contracts by statute. I don't believe that's lawful, so that's an issue that is going to be a cost to the state of California and should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Tom Pedersen, representing the California Rifle and Pistol Association. We share many of the concerns that have already been expressed, but with potential loss of up to $170,000 per year in revenue to that entity with no viable replacement monies being available necessarily at this time or even in the near future, we are opposed to the bill, and we urge your no vote.
All right, thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Ed Worley with the National Rifle Association. We are also in opposition to the bill. Respectfully, it's a very important constitutional issue that everybody has access to public property for public activities, that everybody should be able to use public facilities. Just because some local jurisdiction doesn't like the facility, doesn't like the activity, is not justify the fact that you're going to stop people from doing activity. We've done Public Records Act requests on local law enforcement asking what the legal problems are and what the law enforcement problems have been at the Cow Palace Gun Show. We just got back one of the responses from that, and they have no legal problems or no law enforcement activities at problems that have taken place at the Cow Palace Gun Show, within the gun show itself.
Okay.
So we're in opposition, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We do have questions from the members. Mr. Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question to the author.
Sure.
Help me understand a little bit about how the operating agreement works with the City and County of San Francisco. Is there some sort of agreement? I understand it's state property, and therefore I think that's why you're trying to limit their activity. But does the City and County of San Francisco have any operating agreement with the Cow Palace?
This is on state property. As I say, it's an anomalous situation that this little spit of land, which is sitting right on the border of the two counties, but it's state-owned, state-operated. The counties have no say over it.
So there isn't a commission, or I mean, so if somebody wants to have some sort of show at this venue, how do they go about doing it?
They would contact the Department of Agriculture's Division of Fairs and Expositions.
Okay, and so and they don't have any permitting or any kind of approval process that has to go through the City and County of San Francisco?
No.
Very good. I do have some issues with the bill. In particular, I think the potential losses of revenues. I mean, I understand, I think, the concerns that you have with it. As a courtesy, I'm happy to move the bill along as today, but would like to talk to you a little bit more about the arrangement that exists there today, and to see if this really is indeed the best
Sure.
way to limit that type of activity.
It's actually, with regard to that concern, a more supportable bill than when you voted for it on the floor last year, in that we're phasing it out over 5 years, so that we know that, for example, there are any number of new green shows that are organizing nationwide, and these showcase energy efficiency solutions for businesses and for residences. We're going to have a world-class green business incubator at Hunters Point in the next coming years, so there's a good synergy there. We believe that by phasing out one every year over the next 4 or 5 years, we'll be able to replace them with green and other kinds of shows, so there really won't be any concern to the state.
Very good. I look forward to having the conversation with
You
you.
bet.
Mr. Leno, let me add one thing, too, is with regards to Mr. Fuentes' concerns, I would highly encourage offline, if we move forward, that you do have a conversation with
Sure.
Mr. Fuentes on this issue. I will say, with regards to venues that could come in, I know that I have some family members who live in San Jose who were at the Cow Palace last week to see the Vicente Fernandez concert, and that was a venue that they filled in there, too, also. But I do want to underscore with Mr. Fuentes that you do have this conversation.
Thank you.
Mr. Senator Jim Nielsen.
Well, I must engage my esteemed colleague in just a little bit of colloquy and debate over the issue. I spent many years chairing the Board of Prison Terms, studying tens of thousands of cases of murder, and there were few of those that I ever saw that someone went to a gun show to get a gun and then ran out and committed a murder or wreaked havoc in a community. I mean, that's I can appreciate the prevailing community sentiments, but if we, the state of California, let that be the governing factor, any issue in any community politically could become a governing factor controlling a park, as well as a state facility such as the Cow Palace. So I would think that this is a very, very dangerous precedent. And again, I don't think there's any correlation whatsoever to the gun show and the crime in the area. So I would certainly not be in support.
With the chair's permission, if I could just briefly respond.
Please go right ahead.
Again, a court of law has already sustained the right for counties to be able to pass local ordinances to prohibit these shows on county property. So there's nothing that says...
County, but not state property, though.
Correct.
Yeah.
But again, this is a novel situation. And all I'm saying, and I'm not arguing with you with regard to your experience in your service on that board, but I would say that in communities that are experiencing such high rates of gun violence, children being shot in the street, stray bullets, all of it, just the worst that you've read about, that if we're trying to instill in children that the best way for them to reach their goals in their future is to work hard, study hard, stay out of gangs, and they wake up every morning and they see signs blasting guns, 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 we're sending them mixed messages at
But,
best.
Senator, very few guns are used to shoot people. Most guns are used for very constructive societal purposes, and we must not forget that.
We know what's going on in the streets, and to have that visual in their neighborhoods when they don't want it and their elected leaders don't want it. If this were in your district, I would respect what your district wanted.
Okay, let's go to the next
Thank
one.
you.
Let's
Thank
go
you.
on to Mr. John Perez.
This is a difficult one for me. I I respect the right of counties to be able to make these choices. I respect the fact that my home county has made the choice with respect to their fairgrounds. I don't agree with much of your underlying logic. I don't think that, that the issues that you've raised with respect to the community in question really is persuasive to me in terms of the gun show being there, being something that would encourage folks to engage in more gun violence. That's not an argument that's persuasive to me. But this is a fiscal committee, so my concerns are purely fiscal. My concern is for the loss of revenue to the state. And so if we were passing a piece of legislation that was incurring additional cost to the county, we'd be talking about whether or not it was an unfunded mandate. And so my concern is if there's any way to protect the state from the loss of revenue. You've made statements about other potential shows to come in and backfill, and I'm encouraged by that. But have you considered any other way for the counties in question to make the state of California whole for lost revenues if they aren't able to backfill the shows?
The risk is not to the counties. I recognize it's to the state,
right.
But it's under the threshold of this committee's suspense file, and we believe very strongly that if the show is about $30,000 worth of revenue to the state, that is a minimal amount of money that will be able to be recaptured with a different kind of show coming to that, and we can do it one show per year over a 5-year period.
So how many shows, how many gun shows are happening in the last couple of years?
They're about 4 or 5 per year.
4 or 5. So you limit it to 5 now, so that there isn't an increase, and then you back it down from there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. John Pettis. Ms. Harkey.
Thank you. The gun shows are now limited, and they seem to draw. They're profitable. I echo Mr. Perez's concerns. I also echo my colleague Senator Nielsen's concerns with regard to precedent setting. If the problem is, in fact, that the gun sign is flashing, why don't we do a sign ordinance? I mean, I just have an issue with the state banning a useful activity or any activity that the public seems to want. So I rest my case with that one. I think maybe a sign ordinance might be in order. Thank you.
I would only disagree that this is not what the people want.
The people of the state of California or the people of San Francisco?
San Francisco and San Mateo County in every way possible.
Well, we are governing from the state, as I'm sure you're aware. Thank you.
Yes. I just lean on the side of local control.
Okay, we got Mr. Isidore Hall. And before Mr. Isidore Hall asks either a question or gives a commentary, I just want to welcome to the Appropriations Committee. She's sitting in the front row, Ms. Dorothy Van Hall, who is Mr. Isidore Hall's mother. So I want to give a... She's traveled all the way from Southern California, from Compton, California, to tug on her son's ear to make sure he's doing the right thing. So yeah. So Mr. Hall.
Yes, she said she'd stay for 2 weeks. I said, we are only going to be here for a week. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to echo the comments of my colleague, Mr. Fuentes. I do have some serious concerns about this bill. I would not belabor the point, but I hope that we can have some further dialogue offline as well to figure out best ways in which we can move this along. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go with Mr. Miller, and then we're going to finish and finalize with Mr. Amiano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator, I can appreciate the difficulty in this. That we're dealing with local control issue versus a fiscal issue versus kind of a philosophical issue. And I think, for me, I think the philosophical part of it is what I'm struggling with, because if, in fact, the violence is of such a high nature in and around the area of the Cow Palace, and it seems like, you know, the gun sign is, in your opinion, is contributing to that. I think it's a real slippery slope. I think you have to really, ask yourself, what is creating the violence? If that's the case, then what do we do with TV? Because they're going to go back in their homes and they're going to watch TV shows that are going to potentially contribute to violence way more than a flashing gun sign. And so, I'm just concerned where you would actually go on this, and then ultimately what we would end up banning. It's kind of like blaming the pen for the spelling error. I think you've got to be real careful with the direction you're going, but clearly local control is an important issue, and I think we voted that way on a variety of issues here also. So it's going to be hard to support this one.
And again, just very briefly, I agree with you. We can't take all the violence and imagery of violence out of the lives of our young people, but we don't need to be contributing to it unnecessarily. And if the District Attorney of San Francisco were here today, and I'm sorry she cannot be, but she's a co-sponsor along with the mayor of this bill, she would tell you from her own experience and from the experience of her investigators that there are some relationships she can document between some of the guns that come out of the show. And not even so much out of the show, but those who are attending the show, those nefarious characters, are also independent of the show, but of course interrelated, dealing guns out of their trucks in those neighborhoods. And the neighbors just don't want it. And if you want to have it, or someone else in San Francisco wants it in their backyard, we'd be happy to hear another idea.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. Finally, Mr. Amiano.
Thank you very much, and I applaud the Senator for addressing this issue. I'm very familiar with this area. I taught at Visitation Valley Middle School, which is heavily affected by gang influence. In fact, the principal there has received national recognition for making the school a haven, a refuge. For the children to feel safe, for their families to feel safe. It's not a very pleasant situation. If you go to that neighborhood and understand the fear that exists amongst the people who reside there, the taxpayers, by accident of location, we have this giant eyesore, the Cow Palace, which perpetrates the romanticizing of guns to the kids. They are influenced heavily from walking home from school to their particular homes and domiciles by gang members, enticing them into gangs, intimidating into gangs with the promise of securing guns. It's counterintuitive to have gun shows there that unfortunately glorify the idea of guns as weapons of power. I understand, of course, there's the issue of hunters, et cetera, and so forth, but the kids don't get that message. They get a double message. And as a teacher, I can tell you, when you get a double message, you get confused. And what you usually do is err on the not on the side of caution, but on the side of being cavalier. It's not a pleasant situation there. The people who are trying to get a grip on their lives and protect their kids and also reflect the policy of San Francisco are also feeling thwarted by the idea of these gun shows in such a proximate location. It's more the location, it's more the proximity. If you had a strip club or something of that order in a neighborhood, people or a medical marijuana dispensary, people would be up in arms about that, and they would have the right to say you can't have these venues within 1,000 feet of a school, et cetera, and so forth. It just happens that the jurisdiction here is not a city and county jurisdiction, it's a state jurisdiction, and I think that that is unfortunate, and I do think that the state should use its discretion in these matters, and I'd like to be a co-sponsor of the bill.
Thank you, Assemblyman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Almeida. We're going to go to DOF. Do you have a file? Then we'll go for a close.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Rob Schladel for the Department of Finance. We only want to report that the Department of Food and Ag indicates to us that the gun shows at the Cow Palace generate about $150,000 a year.
Okay, that fits our threshold. Mr. Leno would like to make a close.
Again, I appreciate the healthy debate. If it weren't that we were talking about the life and death of children and the safety of our communities and people living in a war zone, coming to their elected officials and saying, can you do something about this? This is not a niche show. This is not trading of CDs. This is a show that has to do with the safety of our communities. And I would just ask from the bottom of my heart that you respect the fact that this is a district bill. It does not set any precedent. It's an anomalous situation. Again, if this were owned by the counties that we're talking about, I wouldn't have to be here. We've done everything we could. Senator Speer authored this a few years ago, passed out of this committee. I authored it last year, passed out of this committee. We'd really like to see this get to the governor's desk, and I ask for your aye vote.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Leno. We have a motion that's been made by Mr. Solorio. We have a second by Mr. Amiano. Madam Secretary, let's please call a Republican roll call.
Nielsen? Nielsen, no. Duvall? No. Duvall, no. Harkey? No. Harkey, no. Miller?
No.
Miller, no. Strickland?
Mr. Leno, your measure passes. It also passes with some courtesy votes on the Dem side. I just want to underscore, I believe policy-wise, this is a local measure with regards to locals should control their destiny. I do concur with you with regards to the gun violence. I would again just underscore that you continue the conversations with some of the members on both sides, you know, but especially with the courtesy vote, folks.
Of course.
Have a good day, Mr. Leno. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. Mr. Benoit. Mr. Benoit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You have SB 204 before us today. It's a do pass recommendation.
Thank you. We'll be very brief.
Bless you. Wherever.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, SB 204 is a measure that I am carrying on behalf of the Escrow Institute of California.
Second.
We have a motion that's been made by Mr. Pettis. We have a second by Mr. Duvall. Do you have any witnesses to support, Mr. Benoit?
I do. I have Mr. Egan from the Escrow
Mr.
Institute.
Egan, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, Tim Egan with the Escrow Institute of California sponsored a bill and ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Any witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, DOF, do you have a file?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have minor and absorbable cost for this.
Thank you very much. You had a very articulate statement. I'll take that as your close. We have a motion made by Mr. John Pettis and second Mr. Duvall. Your measure passes on an A roll call.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Mr. Dutton. I saw Mr. Dutton. Mr. Dutton, good morning. You have one bill before us today, which is SB 765, which is a candidate for suspense.
Yes, sir.
It is 9:35. We've had a conversation, but please proceed with your presentation.
Yes, and I want to express my appreciation to your concern and assistance in this handling this matter here. What SB 765 will do is provides a sales and use tax exemption for property sold at thrift stores operated by the Navy Marine Corps, the Relief Society, and Marine Corps Relief Society. It will provide emergency financial assistance to service members through interest-free grants. In 2006, the society provided roughly around $37 million in financial assistance in food, shelter, medical, dental, and funeral expenses for the men and women serving in our armed forces. This bill is sponsored by the Board of Equalization, San Diego Military Advisory Council, California Police Officers Association, California Police Chiefs Association, and also the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce. The reason for the bill is to clear up some technical challenges with the current law that's currently in place, and this bill is attempting to do that. It has a low threshold, but I do understand the chair's concern with regards to making sure all the T's and I's have been crossed and dotted, and look forward to working with you while it's on suspense.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Dutton. Your supporters.
Mr. Chairman, Randall Friedman on behalf of the U.S. Navy. Just to put a California face on this bill, in 2008, the Relief Society provided over 15,000 cases of financial assistance for $11 million. That is 1/4 of their worldwide funding. It gives an indication of their commitment to California and an indication of just how challenged many of the service members and their families who are stationed in California are. One other aspect in terms of the uniqueness of this, do want to point out that unlike any other thrift store in this state, the Navy and Marine Corps provide 100% of the services, whether it's street repair, sidewalk repair, police or fire. There are absolutely no costs to the state or local governments through the operations of these thrift stores, and we strongly support.
Thank you very much. Next supporter.
Good morning. My name is Margaret Shedd. I'm with the State Board of Equalization. The board is the sponsor of the bill. The board estimates that the general fund loss is $15,000 a year, which is well below the suspense threshold. Also, I'd like to point out that these are unique organizations that are running the thrift stores. They are nonprofit organizations that are in partnership with the Navy and Marine Corps, which are federally tax-exempt entities. And if they were operating the thrift shops, they would be exempt.
Okay, thank you very much. DOF, do you have a file?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we agree with the Board of Equalization on the costs.
All right. Mr. Dunn, we had a conversation, and as you know, we don't have a philosophical difference, but rather a fiscal difference with regards to the implications of what may be potentially the unintended consequences. Nonetheless, I like the policy of your measure, and as I stated to you offline, I commit myself to work with you, Senator, as well as my staff to work with your staff as we move along with this. So I thank you very much for the opportunity that you've given us to present this measure.
Well, I thank you too, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to working with you.
We really feel a camaraderie since we've been together almost 24/7 for 3 weeks in a row on a conference committee.
You betcha. I got some familiar faces here.
Mr. Dunn, have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay. We have our chair of the Senate Budget Committee, Ms. Ducheney. So members Lowenthal and Ms. Negrete McLeod, if you could be so kind enough to allow me to bring Ms. Ducheney, the budget chair. I will assure you she did not
one bill
pull any strings or
I already told them. Thank you.
Use her political weight.
One bill quick. One bill real quick.
Ms. Ducheney, good morning. You have SB 90 before us today.
I promise I waived on the other two, so this should be fairly short.
Go right ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members. As proposed to be amended, this bill is a supplemental appropriations bill to fund deficiencies in the Department of Corrections for fiscal years 07 and 08. It will not add to our current deficit. These are monies that, unfortunately, in the LAO, as the analysis points out, is correct, should have been brought to us sooner. But this will help straighten out their books, finance, and the LAO, although reluctantly, agree to these expenditures, which, as I indicate, have already been essentially made. This is for health care related costs under the receivership, implementation of court orders, and some of the other CDR costs. We have added some language to get better reporting on this. There is some work going on in the receiver's office to try to bring these health care related costs under control. And we are trying to better manage expenditures on contract medical services. The bill contains reporting language for them to bring back to us on those issues as well. There are several measures that have been put into place since these costs were incurred, but nonetheless, they're bills that we owe, and the controller can't finish paying them and closing out our books for 07, 08, and 08, 09 without this measure. Ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ducheney. See no one in support, no one in opposition. Do you have a file?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We would just note that most all of these costs are driven by lawsuits, and the total cost for 2008-9 is $510 million.
Move the bill.
Okay, we have a motion. It's been made by Mr. John Pettis. We have a second by Mr. Amiano. So the members know on both sides of the aisle this is a deficiency bill, and a deficiency bill, the policy committee is the appropriations committee. We're appropriating $645 million for budget years 2007 and 2008. This has already been factored into the current year budget. We have a motion that's been made by Mr. John Pettis. It's been seconded by Mr. Amiano. This measure passes with Republicans not voting.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Shane, thank you very much. Mr. Lowenthal. Mr. Lowenthal, good morning.
Good morning.
You have two measures before us today. You have SB 183 and SB 455. They're two do pass
and recommendations. And I do also believe that I'm presenting for Senator DeSaulnier.
Mr. DeSaulnier, very good.
Yes.
You have one which deals with 183, carbon monoxide.
Let's start
poisoning.
with SB 183.
Please proceed.
SB 183, members, is a bipartisan measure which had received unanimous support in the
Move the
Assembly.
bill.
We have a motion that's been made by Mr. John Perez. We have a second by your colleague from the South Bay, that be Mr. Isidore Hall. Do you have any supporters?
Mr. Chairman, members, I'm Kathy Barankin, representing the California Coalition for Children's Safety and Health and the California Industrial Hygiene Council.
Thank you very much. Mr. Afric Vargas.
That's correct, with the California State Firefighters Association. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Lowenthal, do you have anyone in opposition of your bill? Seeing none, do you have a file?
Yes, we have about a cost of $10,000 to develop regulations.
Way below our threshold right now. We have a motion made by Mr. John Perez. We have a second by Mr. Isidore Hall. Mr. Lowenthal, this measure passes on a B roll call. Let's move on to SB 455.
Thank you.
You want a roll call? Let's rewind that right now. They want a Republican roll call.
Nielsen? Aye. Nielsen, aye. Duvall? No. Duvall, no. Harkey?
I'm sorry, I missed what we were doing. On which bill? The one that we just heard.
Yes, carbon monoxide.
No.
Harkey, no. Miller? No. Miller, no. Strickland? Strickland, no.
Okay, we did that. We had one added on.
Well, thank you.
Senator Nielsen. Let's go on to SB 455.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. With the passage of what Proposition 1A transformed the High-Speed Rail Authority from a planning and promotional entity to an operational agency.
We have a motion that's been made, Mr. Lowenthal, by Mr. Isidore Hall. We have a second by Mr. John Perez. Do you have any witnesses in support?
No, they're not witnesses.
Witnesses in opposition?
No witnesses in opposition.
Okay. DOF, do you have a file?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have an annual cost of about $100,000 for the report.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Lowenthal, this measure passes on a B roll call. Let's move on to Mr. Mark Desagne's measure.
SB 811, specially constructed vehicles.
Mr. 811, DMV kit cars. These are old cars that are brand new cars?
What it is, these are new cars that are constructed that look
old.
like old
Classic cars.
If they were registered in the state of California where they were built, they have to register the year they were registered, or they're considered a new car and they have to do new emission standards. What happens, though, is if they're built brand new, out of the state, registered in those states, the year that the car is emulated, for example, in 2009, the car was built that really is a 1965 Mustang. When it comes into the state, this loophole now, existing law, allows it to be registered as a 1965 car, and it doesn't have to hold up to California emission standards. There are approximately 3,000 to 5,000 cars coming into the state each year like that. I ask for your honor.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Lowenthal. Witnesses in support.
Mark LaForest, SJ from the Attorney General's Office. We're the sponsor of the bill. We think this is an important loophole in our smog regime to be closed, and we ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Other witnesses in support.
Tom Addison with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District in support.
Okay, thank you. Witnesses in opposition. Seeing none, do you have a file?
No file, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Do we have a motion? Do we have a question? No? Do we have a motion for Mr. Mark Desagne on the classic cars that are made to look new cars? We have a motion that's been made by Mr. Tom Torlakson. We have a second by Ms. Nancy Skinner. This bill passes on a B roll call.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Negrete McLeod for.
That I will put you as aye. Thank you.
Ms. Negrete McLeod, buenos días.
Buenos días.
You'll be presenting.
I have two bills, SB 819, which is my own, and then I am going to present SB 741, which is Maldonado's bill.
Okay, please proceed. This is a committee bill, 819.
That is correct.
Okay.
This is, good morning, Mr. Chair and members. SB 819 is...
Ms. Negrete McLeod, a motion's been made by Mr. Felipe Fuentes. It's been second. Mr. Jose Solorio, do you have any witnesses in support?
I don't. This is just the omnibus bill for the business and professional.
I see no witnesses in opposition. Okay. Do you have a file?
No file, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. This motion has been made by Mr. Felipe Fuentes, second by Mr. Solorio. The measure passes on an A roll call.
Thank you very much. The second bill is SB 741, which is proprietary security offices, which is Mr. Maldonado's bill. SB
Ms. Negrete McLeod, so that you know, SB 741 is a measure that is being carried by Mr. Maldonado. Do you know why he couldn't grace us with his presence today?
I have no idea.
No?
I was just asked yesterday if
Okay.
I would carry the bill.
Oh, just checking, that's all. Okay?
But I'm sure he wanted to be here to meet with you all.
We have a motion that's been made by Mr. Duval. It's been seconded by Mr. Solorio. Let's call a Republican roll call.
Nielsen? Duval?
Yes.
Duval, aye. Harkey? Miller? Strickland? Strickland, no.
Ms. Romero, I'm sorry, I apologize. Ms. Negrete McLeod.
I know we all look alike.
This is Negrete McLeod. Go ahead, Mr. Bettis.
Hector Della Torre over here.
Yeah.
I get it all the time. In fact, I have his mail in my office right now. I have to deliver him to him later on today. Ms.
I
Negrete
know
McLeod.
the first names confuse you.
Okay.
Gloria and Gloria.
This measure passes, and tell Mr. Maldonado that you did a wonderful job passing it.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much. Ms. Pavley. Good morning, Ms. Pavley. You have two measures before us today. One is a due pass recommendation. That's SB 448. One is a suspense candidate. Would you like to begin and end with SB 448?
448, absolutely. And I wanted to just correct one thing in the staff analysis. I do have the support with a letter in hand from the California Farm Bureau Federation.
Absolutely. I see you right there at the table with you.
Farm Bureau have worked very well together, and we appreciate the good faith effort through this process. This is a voluntary, emphasis on voluntary habitat enhancement program, which will encourage protection of species while protecting landowners from unintended and increased regulatory burdens. It's modeled after a federal program.
Gotcha.
It makes a lot of sense. There's no opposition to the bill.
Fantastic. We have a motion. It's been made by Mr. Duval. We have a second. It's made by Mr. Felipe Fuentes. Witnesses in support, I would ask you to please be brief.
Good morning. Kim Delfino with Defenders of Wildlife, sponsors of the bill, and we urge your aye vote.
Thank you very much.
Philip Ong on behalf of the Nature Conservancy in support as well.
Thank you very much.
Noelle Kramers with the California Farm Bureau Federation. We really thank the sponsors and author for their willingness to work with us and are very happy to be fully supportive of the bill.
Thank you very much. Other witnesses in support? Seeing none. Witnesses in opposition? Seeing none. Do you have a file?
No file, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion that's been made by Mr. Mike Duval. We have a second that's been made by Mr. Felipe Fuentes. This measure passes on a roll call. Thank you very much, Ms. Pavley.
The next item is a suspense candidate.
So you do want to speak out to suspense?
Is that all right?
That's quite okay.
Just perhaps just real.
It's SB 790. Please proceed.
If that's okay.
Go right ahead, Ms. Pavley.
As you know, I chaired the Natural Resources and Water Committee, and there is a major water source that up to now has not been managed for beneficial use, and that's stormwater. Right now, stormwater is just treated, goes out into the ocean, and we never use it again. What this bill does is creates a framework to design projects within existing bond monies and local grants and local options. This is not a program that will expand the universe of people applying for bond funds. It just creates a category within the framework that makes a lot of sense. And at the end of the day, I think it saves money, because if we use stormwater more efficiently and wisely, for whether it's recharging aquifers or helping water supplies, especially in urban areas, it'll save the long run the costly expenditures we'll have to pursue in dealing with the Delta and other water supply issues. This bill is sponsored by Tree People, has the support of many, many organizations, sure. And I would appreciate your careful review of the cost, because I think it's a very cost-effective, no expansion in the number of applications, just repackages it with a little bit of tweaking on how we could use stormwater more beneficially, sure, rather than just throwing it out.
Well, I'll assure you, Ms. Pavley, you will get that careful review. I'm going to ask the witness in support to be extremely brief.
Yes, Connie Galippi on behalf of Tree People, the sponsor of the bill. We are very excited to sponsor this bill. It's the first bill that the organization has sponsored. We've been working for many years with water agency partners in LA County, City of LA, and Department of Water Power on stormwater resource projects.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to the next witness.
Rosie Thompson with the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California in support.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members, I'm Ron Davis with the Association of California Water Agencies, and we too are in support.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Philip Ung on behalf of the Los Angeles Conservation Corps and California Relief in support.
Thank you very much.
Rico Mastrodonato at the Trust for Public Land in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dustin Lauerman with the Planning and Conservation League. We support this bill.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, DOF, do you have a file?
No file, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Ms. Pavley, thank you very much, and I will assure you will get that careful review. We'll work closely together.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Pavley. Sergeants, I'm going to ask you to please call Ms. Corbett, Ms. Kehoe, Ms. Oropesa, and Mr. Yee. And we have before us today, I believe I just saw him, Mr. Simidian. Okay, let's do that. What we're going to do right now is, because we're waiting for some of the senators, we just have a handful of senators so we can finish this off. I'm going to bring up SB 250, Mr. Dean Flores, for those individuals who, before you move, for those individuals who are either in support or in opposition, Mr. Flores has waived his presentation. This is a bill that's going to the suspense file. So those who are in support, I'm going to allow 2 witnesses, and those who are in opposition, I'm going to allow 2 witnesses only. And I will recognize all the individuals who are present today who are either in support or in opposition. So why don't we get the folks in support of this measure? And again, I'm going to allow only 2 individuals. And this is in support of SB 250. This is in opposition. Okay. Before we do that, is there anyone in support of SB 250? Seeing none, this is opposition 250. And allow 2 individuals to speak. Go right ahead, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Push that. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Kathy Turner. I am the Executive Director of Concerned Dog Owners of California. I'd like to deviate from my planned script by telling you that Intact Dogs have 5 events at the Cow Palace each year, and the participants spend, just on fuel, food, and lodging, $340,000. That does not include the cost to rent the facility or pay any of the local people. So I'd really like to, having started that way, I'd like to talk about the income and what would be lost under 250. In 2008, there were 1,621 specific dog events held in California, sponsored by the American Kennel Club, which is just one of the organizations that sanction events. In taking part in these events, every one of the 570,000 participants would have been in violation of some part of SB 250 during both training and competitions. The money from these participants, who primarily have intact dogs, is about $97 million. That's divided in 140 towns and cities that host these competitions. We're providing each assembly member with the detailed breakdown of what is generated in their communities. The American Kennel Club sent a letter to this committee stating that if SB 250 passes in the state of California, they will assume that California is no longer interested in their events or in their intact dogs. Thank you.
I press this.
Go ahead and push that red button right there. There you go.
Test? Okay, thank you. Good morning, Chairman and committee members. My name is Angie Niles with the National Animal Interest Alliance to speak in opposition to SB 250. This chart shows the 24% increase in dog euthanasias that occurred in 2008 in Los Angeles, California, after the passage of their mandatory spay-neuter law. The entire state was hit by the economy, and so included are a number of jurisdictions that were hit as hard or harder than LA, with higher unemployment, foreclosure, and poverty rates. This chart therefore shows the effect of an SB 250 type ordinance on shelter rates and not the effect of the economy. We recognize that when one sees a 25% downturn, you are on the wrong track. This is too expensive. Downturns are expensive. Until now, state taxpayers footed part of that bill with reimbursements mandated by the Hayden Act. While those reimbursements are now a thing of the past for the state, the costs still occur and are simply shifted. Next chart. The next chart, you can very clearly see the steep decline in licensing and revenues in the years following LA County's spay or pay ordinance. Santa Cruz County saw a similar decline in licensing revenue. Flip the chart. In addition, Santa Cruz has escalating expenses. Santa Cruz's per capita animal control budget is 74% higher than the state's. SB 250 could easily drive the state's $250 million price tag to $433 million. There isn't enough money in our state and local budgets to enforce laws against real criminals, much less voting taxpayers whose dogs wander off their property. With the budget deficit bracketed somewhere between $20 and $40 billion, it is fiscally irresponsible to pass a bill loaded with higher costs and lower revenues. We respectfully request that this committee vote no on SB 250 in any form. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. What I'm going to do right now is, I know folks took the time to come up here. I want to give them the respect that they deserve. Individuals who are also in opposition, if you could please stand so we can take... Okay. I think that's the vast majority. We understand that you vote, and we want to do this in a very transparent, democratic manner, okay? So I want to thank you very much. This bill goes to suspense file, and we'll proceed from there. Thank you very much. Let's go on to the next. Yes.
If I just make two observations, or comments and one observation.
Go right ahead.
Well, the first one is that I tend to be against this bill because I think more dogs are euthanized than cats, so I think there's a feline bias in the law. So, but I thought you were going to say something. But having said that, I really hope that legislators stop bringing these bills to the legislature. Every locality, if they want to assess a fee for this purpose, can do it. They don't need the state to get involved and to intervene. And so, you know, this may be about euthanasia, but this bill just doesn't die. So anyway, just wanted to make this.
Okay, Mr. Calderon. All right. What I wanted to, Mr. Calderon, is open up the floodgates. Mr. Davis, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to also say that I have to agree with my colleague in terms of policy in the state and local control, and that we have had municipalities to put together policies within their own jurisdictions that have been effective for that. And I know that there is a time that we need to unify around a policy for the entire state. I'm not so sure that this is one such time. I have looked at these individuals who have written to our offices with regard to this issue, and these are the people who say no, and these are the few people who said yes. I know that letters often aren't an indication of what good public policy should be, but in this case, I think that it is clear to me, as it is daytime right now, that in this policy, we need to have made some accommodations for some of the issues that have fiscal impact on this policy as well, because that's what we deal with in the Appropriations Committee. And so when we looked at some of the fiscal issues that were raised, I would love to see any future policy to accommodate that. And so having gotten the message, I'll have to agree with Mr. Calderon that we need to allow, in this case, local governments to do their responsibility at creating laws that are appropriate for their jurisdictions. And so I'd have to join Mr. Calderon in that position against the bill.
There you go, with some solidarity. Okay, that will finalize SB 250. Again, I want to underscore this is a measure that goes on suspense file, and the chapter and the saga continues. So thank you very much, everybody. Let's move Ms. Corbett. Ms. Corbett, you have three measures before us today, SB 95, SB 305, and you have a committee bill, SB 556, due pass recommendations. It is 10:03 a.m. We're waiting for a few senators also. Let's move this as quickly as possible.
Yes, thank you very much, and glad to report that I believe there's no opposition on any of
Ms.
these.
Corbett, you have a motion that's been made by Mr. Felipe Fuentes.
Thank you.
It's been seconded by Mr. Tom Torlakson. Those in support? Those in opposition?
Rosemary? Oh.
Those in support? Are you in support?
Yes.
Yes, please proceed.
Rosemary Shahan, President of Consumers for Auto Reliability and Safety. We're the sponsors of the bill, and we believe that it will help restore consumer confidence in our auto market here in California, and we'd ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Crystal Jack on behalf of CarMax in support of the bill.
Thank you very much. Any others in support? Seeing none. Witnesses in opposition? I also see none. DOF, do you have a file?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We indicate that there would be costs of about $100,000 and that the revenue associated with the bill would be $475,000.
Okay. We get some revenue into the state. Thank you very much, DOF. We have a motion that's been made by Mr. Felipe Fuentes, second by Mr. Torlakson. Let's call a Republican roll call.
Nielsen, Duvall, Harkey, Miller, no. Strickland, no.
Okay, Ms. Corbett, the measure passes. Let's go on to your next measure, which is SB 305.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. Senate Bill 305 requires the opposite.
Again, Ms. Corbett, you have a motion that's been made by Mr. Felipe Fuentes. It's been seconded by Ms. Nancy Skinner. Do we have any supporters? I see none. Do we have anyone in opposition? I also see none. DOF, do you have a file?
No file, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion. Again, I want to underscore by Mr. Felipe Fuentes. We have a second by Nancy Skinner, Ms. Nancy Skinner. Ms. Corbett, this measure passes on a B roll call. Let's go on to the next measure, which is SB 556. It's just a committee bill from Judiciary. Please proceed with regards to FTB.
Senate Bill 566 is the Judiciary Committee bill, makes several non-controversial changes.
Again, we have a motion that's been made by Mr. Felipe Fuentes. It has been seconded by Mr. John Perez. Witnesses in support?
Dan Pone, Judicial Council, in support.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? Seeing none. Witnesses in opposition? Also seeing none. Do you have to have a file?
No file, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. You have some Republican love in this case. This measure passed in a bipartisan manner with an A roll call. Thank you very much, Ms. Corbett.
Thank you very
have
much,
a good day.
Mr. Chair and members. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. I should say sergeants. We are waiting for Ms. Kehoe, Ms. Oropesa, Mr. Samidian, as well as Mr. Yee. We have four individuals. We're gonna wait until about 10 minutes. It's 10:05 right now. They got 10:15. We have members on this committee that have to present their bills on the other side, so we have a 10-minute time frame. If they don't come in, then we'll move their bills until the next week, if there's a next week. Where's Kimberly? Kimberly. Kimberly. Where's your amendment?
Thank you.
Mr. Leland Yee, welcome. I'm glad you can come on up. Don't sign up. Just walk on up. You get VIP carte blanche treatment here. Mr. Yee, you have 5 bills before today. 1 is consent, 3 are due pass recommendation, 1 is due pass with amendments.
Let me take 220.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members. This is about saving taxpayers' money. This bill is a whistleblower dealing with complaints and retaliations against employees. What this will do is to allow individuals to go directly to court, saving much administrative costs of the State Personnel Board. And with that, urge an aye vote.
We have a motion that's been made, I believe, by Mr. Isidore Hall. It's been seconded by Mr. Felipe Fuentes. Witnesses in support? See no witnesses in support? I see a lot of activity, but no motion.
Oh, no, this is not the bill. This one.
Okay, any witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, do you have a file?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have no significant costs or savings due to this bill.
Okay, we have a motion that's been made by Mr. Hall. These are technical amendments. It has been seconded by Mr. Felipe Fuentes. Measure passes on a B roll call. Let's move on to SB 300.
300, very quickly, this is about bar pilots and giving them sufficient navigational equipment or other measures or other issues we've worked out with both sides. Urge an aye vote.
Okay, Mr. Yee, witnesses in support.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members, Fred Torr representing the San Francisco Bar Pilots. Just 2 things I'd like to emphasize. One is that this bill does not involve any state money whatsoever. There are no public funds. And secondly, what the bill simply does is authorize the implementation of a private agreement between 2 business entities that had been freely negotiated by them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other witnesses
with me
in
is
support?
Kenny Levin, the business director of the San Francisco Bar Pilots. We're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? Seeing none, witnesses in opposition, also seeing none. Do you have a file?
No file, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion that's been made by Mr. Hall. It's been seconded by Mr. Fuentes. This measure passes on a B roll call. Let's move on. 535 has been pulled. Mr. Yee, let's go to 557.
Thank you very much. This basically is a bill to reduce human trafficking in the state of California. What this will do is that those properties that is used in the commission of that particular activity will in fact be seized.
Motion's been made by Mr. Mike Duvall. It's been seconded by Mr. Isidore Hall. Witnesses in support?
Nicole Wertelman on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco in support.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? Seeing none. Witness in opposition, also seeing none. Do you have a file?
No file, Mr.
Okay, this motion has been made by Mr. Mike Duvall. It's been seconded by Mr. Hall. Measure passes on an A roll call.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you have one more before us today. That's on consent. Thank you very much, Mr. Yee.
Thank you.
Mr. Calderon, you have 3 measures before us today, but 2 are candidates for suspense, and 1 is on consent file today. So you have none to present at all today, unless...
SB 627, is that on consent?
That is on consent with technical amendments. Thank you very much. Okay.
Wait a minute. I'll move that to interim.
We have a motion that's been made. A little brotherly love. Okay, members, we're going to go to out of file. We just have a few members left. And we're going to go to SB 680, Ms. Romero. The recommendation from this committee is a do pass as amended. The amendments are very similar to what was proposed 2 weeks ago. The following amendments have been agreed by the author and are recommended by the committee. They are as follows. 1, require an additional annual program information to be reported to the legislature. 2, to require the LAO to conduct a comprehensive evaluation of this program. And 3, to provide authority to the school district of residents to limit the number of pupils who transfer under this program. If the county superintendent determines the district will be classified as negative or qualified due to the loss of students under this program. I want to emphasize that the language is not a requirement as determined by this committee, and the classification reference in this language takes place as part of the normal local budget process. So the recommendation from this committee is a do pass as amended. This is a highly polemic and controversial bill. As we know from last 2 weeks ago, the measure passes on an A roll call. I know there are members who will be off this bill, so please come up and come off the bill. Okay. Oh, that's it. Ms. Calderon, we did a motion, I should say. Got a motion made by Mr. Calderon, second by Mr. Duvall. We got an A roll call for those. Come on up. Ms. Kehoe, come on up. Which one is the poll? Ms. Kehoe.
Good morning, Mr.
Good morning, the Senate Chair of Appropriations. You have one bill before us today, which is SB 372, which is a do pass recommendation. I understand that one measure has been pulled from committee today to hold over at 626. Please proceed with 372.
Move the bill.
Well, motion's been made by Mr. Amiano. It's been seconded by, I don't know if that was Mr. Fuentes or Mr. John Perez. Mr. John Perez, please proceed.
That whole end seems to be with me. I thank you. Would you like a brief explanation, Mr. Chairman?
Why don't we go to your...
well, let's start with Tracy Verardo then from State Parks Foundation.
Please, go ahead.
Good morning. Tracy Verardo Torres with the California State Parks Foundation in strong support of the bill. We agree with the analysis. Minimal cost to the state. Ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Chuck Mills with the California Council of Land Trusts, also in strong support.
Thank you very much.
Rico Mastrodonato with the Trust for Public Land in support.
Joss Mullen with the California League of Conservation Voters in support.
Any other witnesses in support? Seeing none, please go right ahead.
Dustin Lauerman of the Planning and Conservation League. We support this bill.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, Richard Harris on behalf of the Transportation Corridor Agencies of Orange County. Our only suggestion on this bill, we had a major policy discussion about it in a couple committees. We think this bill is a definite candidate for success. You cannot have the thorough analysis that's called for in this bill of the sorts of actions that will be needed without significant costs down the road. And I'll give you one example, which was in the Los Angeles Times 2 days ago, which is the off-road highway park at Pismo Beach, is that if the State Department of Parks determines they want to try to defend that, there's going to be a cost. If they want to say they want to change those uses, there's going to be a cost. They have to do a thorough analysis that's going to have to stand up to rigorous debate. And I would suggest that this will meet your threshold for suspense, if nothing else. And so that would be our recommendation to the committee.
Moira Top on behalf of the Orange County Transportation Authority. We too are in opposition. This bill, the proponents of the bill intend for projects to, the entire purpose would be to increase the length of time that any project would take, and time is money, and time, it does cost additional it costs a lot to put issues before the legislature. It takes it costs money to extend the time it takes to get a project to delivery, and in this time of budget crises, we wonder why transportation projects continue to ratchet up over time and why we aren't able to do as many projects as we used to be able to do. And it's because we have these kind of death by 1,000 cuts bills, and I feel quite strongly that this bill is going in the wrong direction. Ask for your no vote.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Lundgren on behalf of the Orange County Board of Supervisors, we respectfully oppose this.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the opposition to be brief so we can move on with this.
Valerie Nair for the California Chamber of Commerce. We too are opposed.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have to have a file?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have minor and absorbable costs to the state for this bill.
Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe the costs are minor and absorbable. I thank the committee for the work on the analysis. This bill will go a long way to preserve our state park system and allow for necessary infrastructure development. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. We have a question. Ms. Harkey?
Not really a question, but the costs may be minor and absorbable for the state of California, but they will not be for the municipalities trying to access and use the system that we currently have. You just heard from the transportation authorities and others in the county. In my county in particular, you know, we are very conscious of the environmental issues in the parks and what we have. I mean, you see what goes on in Southern California with regard to this and all of our beaches and everything else. But, you know, this is another state mandate almost of cost and expense on top of what they already go through, and we're already restricting dollars for transportation. So I think I respect your reason to wish to do this, but I do think this is something best left to the local, the local counties or authorities to deal with the state on a one case-by-case basis. Thank you.
Chairman?
I would just respond quickly that this is the bill addresses only designated state park lands. So unless a local jurisdiction were going into a state park for non-park development, there would be no additional cost to a local jurisdiction.
Mr. Calderon.
Well, I know this from the analysis, and I was reading through the bill. Well, I guess the first question is this would provide an override of any PUC commission?
Not necessarily. It would leave the final approval in the hands of the legislature.
But can't the legislature do that now?
Not unless there's no setup right now, Assemblymember Calderon, to do that unless a member were to introduce a bill or something. In the federal system, if you attempted development in a federal park, an act of Congress is part of that process. We don't have anything paralleling that.
Who do we have next?
But a bill can be introduced challenging any agency's decision in the legislature. Well, let me ask you this.
That is correct.
If there's a recommendation, if this bill becomes law and the State Park and Recreation Commission recommends a change that has to be approved by the legislature, is there a time frame that this has to happen in?
I think we talked about a time frame. Tracy, you want to take that?
Tracy with the California State Parks Foundation. There's not a set time frame in the bill because given the way the commission works, they meet 4 times a year, could meet on an ad hoc basis. It's possible they could recommend something past, of course, the bill introduction deadline, which would be a problem with just a piece of legislation. But this bill has been amended to say that the legislature could approve the commission's recommendation by resolution, which provides more flexibility in the timing of the legislative cycle.
So you can do this by resolution as opposed to legislation?
Either way.
Yes. And let me just clarify.
My only concern is that, you could, if there's a project that's dependent upon financing, it seems like this could result in a lot of delay that could jeopardize the project. Am I wrong?
I think, Mr. Calderon, what we're looking at is a way to give a greater level of protection to our state park system, the whole system. This bill is meant to deal with major infrastructure, toll roads, transmission lines, etc. These projects usually take a while to get going anyway, most often done by public agencies or very large entities. So I don't think it's built into the process that there's going to be significant environmental review.
I mean, I appreciate what you're trying to do here, but it's like this would allow a constitutionally established commission, for instance, to be overruled by a resolution of the legislature, which does not require a gubernatorial signature.
Ms. Kehoe, why don't we address those questions or concerns in your close, okay? Because I'm going to move on. We have a motion that's been made by Mr. Amiano. It's been seconded by Mr. John Pettis. We're into DOF. We've heard the opposition as well as the support. Why don't we finalize your comments? You do have some concerns, without a doubt, from Mr. Calderon. I would highly recommend offline that this conversation continue. There are some concerns from Mr. Calderon, but let's move forward. Any final commentary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to continue the conversation with Assemblymember Calderon. It's an important issue. The parks are important, too, so we're trying to walk that fine line. I ask for your aye vote.
Madam Chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, we have a motion that's been made by Mr. Amiano. It's been seconded by Mr. John Pettis. This measure passes on the B roll call.
Thank you.
And with what they have Mr. Calderon abstaining.
Thank you. Thank you very much, members.
Thank you.
$50 for
Ms. Oropesa. Ms. Oropesa, you have two measures before us today. One is SB 104 dealing with nitrogen trifluoride. It is a due pass recommendation.
Thank you.
We are almost done, so let's make this as brief as possible.
I'll be brief, Mr. Chair. I thank you, and I'm honored to be once again before the Appropriations Committee.
We're honored to have you here, Ms.
You're very nice. Thank you. This bill basically will add nitrogen trifluoride gas to the list of greenhouse gases that the Air Resources Board must regulate. As you recall, in Prop 32, we had a long list, or a substantial list, of elements that need to be evaluated. We seek to add this to the list because it's been found to be 17,000 times more potent as a global gas agent than similar carbon.
Ms. Oropesa, I just want to say we have a motion made by Mr. Tom Tolix and has been seconded by Ms. Nancy Skinner. Let's move forward with
Mr. Chairman, members, Justin Milan on behalf of the Union of Concerned Scientists and also the League of Conservation Voters. This is an important bill. We need to be extremely careful not to omit the non-Kyoto chemicals as we regulate them. It's a modest measure. I think it's well-deserved, and the environmental community strongly supports it. Thank you.
It's my understanding, and I'm not a scientist, that nitrogen trifluoride, in fact, is more impactful than CO2 greenhouse gases.
17,000 times. And there are a number of other gases that should be included as they are reviewed by the Kyoto Protocol.
So what we're talking about is we're talking about flat screens, LCDs,
absolutely,
these types of products right there. Okay, next witness in support.
Joshua Champion for Sierra Club, California, in support of this bill.
Thank you very much, Joshua. Witnesses in opposition.
Thank you, Chair and members. My name is Dorothy Rothrock with the California Manufacturing Technology Association. Here in opposition.
Hello, how you doing?
Hello. We think automatically giving to CARB authority to regulate new material, new emissions is inappropriate without first the legislature really looking at each of these emissions and determining what the impacts are in California. That will help the legislature make a good decision on what kind of criteria and protocols and oversight they need to give to CARB for each particular emission. Also, the fiscal issue suggests that this is a negligible cost. And I want to make sure that everybody realizes that we don't agree that the current administrative fee regulations that's going through CARB would cover the work to be done for these additional emissions. Those are the current fee is being attributed to the current emitters under the current scoping plan, and this would be beyond that. So we do believe there would be costs.
Thank you very much. Why don't we, Ms. Lopez, why don't we just go quickly and you can address any of the concerns that have been brought forward in your close, please.
Thank you. Robert Callahan with the California Chamber of Commerce. We'd just like to concur with the comments of Dorothy with CMTA. Additionally, we think it is premature to assume that all the new costs that will be incurred by ARB will be recoverable through new or existing fees. And additionally, it's not clear that each new greenhouse gas that will be added via this automatic trigger will necessarily be from a source that's easy to regulate or to collect fees from. So we would ask the committee to consider that in the fiscal concerns and would urge your no vote.
Thank you very much. Next witness in opposition.
Mr. Chair and members, Tony Francois for the Western States Petroleum.
Tony, Mr. Francois, I should say, you want to push that red button, right?
The light is now on.
There we go.
Tony Francois for the Western States Petroleum Association, apparently new to pushing red buttons. And we are opposed for the reasons that have been stated. Thank you.
I have a joke. Thank you very much. We have a question by Ms. Harkey.
Have you tried to work with any of the opposition on this bill? It appears that we have support from the state and county municipal employees, national parks, Sierra Club, Union of Concerned Scientists, but just about every business provider in the state or organization thereof representing is opposing it. I would think that the committee would have a great question in that in this environment, and that you might too, where we're trying to reduce or trying to preserve some employment here in the state. And you know, we've got what, the highest western or the highest unemployment in the western United States, maybe, and we could potentially, we've got 11 and we're potentially going up to 14 next year. Have you had any conversations with any of these people?
Well, Ms. Harkey, let me clarify that this measure, in essence, codifies existing statute within the ARB. And so we are not changing the authorities that a couple of you have expressed concern about. What we are doing is putting those into law so that in the future, if there should be some desire on a part of a future administration to gut our environmental policy, they won't be able to do it with regard to...
Well, I understand your concern, but right now we can't pay our bills. We're upside down in the billions, and we're chasing industry out of this state faster than I mean, all these bills that I see coming through, it's absolutely amazing, and I understand your concern, and in better times I might be willing to sit down and discuss
this is a low cost, this is actually a no cost measure, because the way it is set, let me explain why. Because California will not be doing the evaluation on whether or not an element, an emission is appropriate for the list. It's tied to another. It's tied to another process, similar to the Kyoto process that would occur in the future, and so that process will take place at a global level. And that's how names would come to this.
Okay, I appreciate that we're trying to think globally here, but I'm trying to think locally in employment. And so I understand your concerns for the globe. I'm concerned for California. I'm very concerned for California. Well, we're seeing job-killing bills constantly, and this I've got a real problem with. I appreciate your concerns, but I would love to hear that you'd sat down with some of these groups, the hundreds that are opposing this, and see what they really need and how you can help them stay in business. So thank you very much.
Ms. Oropesa, why don't we do this? We have a motion that's been made by Mr. Torlakson. It's been seconded by Ms. Skinner. Your bill, SB 104, passes on a B roll call.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, members, colleagues.
Have a good day, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Now we have before us, very quickly, we have a measure which is Mr. Tom Harmon, SB 202, which is a candidate for suspense. Nonetheless, we do have one individual who's in opposition? No, just one individual. Do it very quickly. You guys choose among yourselves. Okay. Again, this has been a constant theme. You have members who have places to be at. This is a Spence candidate. Choose among yourselves the straws. Make your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Rick Von Gelder, and I am a licensed California private investigator. I will be very brief. SB 202, this is the third regurgitation of a mandatory continuing education bill for private investigators. It's unnecessary. I look at the analysis that was presented by your committee yesterday, and I do take issue with the fact that there are 10,000 licensed private investigators in California. There's a $20 biannual fee increase that would, because their license renewals every about $5,000 per year, that only generates $100,000, not the $200,000 that's been listed here. And there's just too many unknowns. The fact that this revenue generating is at it's in the hole before it ever gets going doesn't help anybody, especially the licensees, the state of California. Also, I want to say I'm a member of PICA, which is the second largest private investigator association in the state of California, and we take an active opposed position to SB 202. It's not a priority for California consumers. There's no evidence that the consumers are going to benefit from this, and we urge your no vote strongly.
All right, thank you very much. What I would suggest to you is to invest your energy wisely in a timely manner because it's a candidate for suspense. The value added to this, I'm not sure if I can measure it for you. Offline, you come have a conversation with their staff, and we'll listen to all your concerns. You want to say something very briefly?
Chairman and members, I'm with the sponsor of the bill, the California Association of Licensed Investigators. Didn't know we were going to be here testifying today, but we 1,800 members, largest PI group in the world. The consumer harm that could be faced if there is a violation of the law has been established in the policy committee with a unanimous vote, bipartisan. And so we look forward to the discussions while it's on.
Sure. Obviously, there is a difference of opinions on this issue. Again, I just want to, for process reasons, it's a measure that's on suspense. Both sides obviously will have an opportunity to come and we can deliberate and speak as much as you want. Okay?
Thank you.
Mr. Joe Simidian. You're our final author for today.
Who's this? Sutton? This is Simidian. Oh, God, I should know him, but I know his wife.
You have two measures before us, Senator Simidian. You have SB 20 and do pass recommendation SB 832, a committee bill. It is 8:35 a.m., 10:35 I should say, 10:35 a.m. I'd like to move this as quickly as possible. I don't want to deliberate. I know there's a lot of strong opinions on this issue. I don't want to get bogged down on policy issues. I want to be specific to the fiscal issues. So why don't we start, Mr. Simidian?
SB 20, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members, I will try and be brief. This is a update to a measure that was passed in California in 2002. The measure in 2002 is a security breach notification law, which has spawned similar measures now in more than 40 other states. It has been a very successful measure by any assessment and, in fact, has won national recognition on a number of fronts. As one of the authors of that original legislation, along with Senator Steve Peace, we've monitored how the legislation has worked in the intervening years. The answer is it's worked pretty well, but that one area in which the bill could be improved would be to provide greater clarity about what kind of a notice should be sent when it's time to send the notice. Many folks do a very good job in terms of the notice that they provide, but some do not. Surveys indicate that more than 25% of the people who got the notices couldn't quite figure out what the problem was. By the same token, some businesses and public agencies have indicated that they struggle to know exactly what it is they're supposed to provide in the way of information to make sure that they've complied. Solution's pretty simple and straightforward. Provide some clarity now that we've had 5-6 years worth of experience with the law on the books. to say when you're going to send a notice, here are some basic pieces of information that ought to be in the notice to make sure both that people know what it is they're being notified about, and also so that businesses know what they have to do. That's what the bill does. I would respectfully ask for an aye vote. Came out of the Senate on a healthy bipartisan basis.
Okay, Mr. Smith, you have a motion that's been made by Mr. Tom Amino, second by Mr. John Pettis. I'm going to go to the witnesses, and again, I'm going to underscore to the witnesses. Please be brief.
Yes, Lenny Goldberg, Privacy Rights Clearinghouse. We compile a lot of the list of these breaches. People are always calling us and saying, what do they mean? What do we know? This is very good consumer information. Full disclosure, we strongly support the bill.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Randy Hicks with Older Women's League. Also with the disability community, this is a good protection measure for consumers. Yes, they have to know what's going on. A lot of people don't know what's going on until it's already done to them. So we support this. Thank you.
Okay, next witness.
Valerie Small-Navarro with the American Civil Liberties Union in strong support.
All right. Do we have another witness, Mr. Simidian, that is adjacent to the podium? Or is that staff?
Staff, thank you.
Staff, okay. Mr. Ignacio Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ignacio Hernandez on behalf of the Consumer Federation of California in support of the bill.
Okay, any other witnesses in support? Seeing none, we're going to bring witnesses in opposition, and then we're going to have a few questions from the members. Again, I would ask, like I mentioned earlier, let's stick to the fiscal and let's not get to the policy. Mr. Alanis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Alex Alanis with the California Bankers Association. We're just offering two amendments to the bill. One is the removal of the number of persons affected and also the date in which the breach occurred. We're looking for a more flexible reading of the statute, looking for more of a date range than the actual date. I won't get into the policy, Mr. Chair, but just one quick thing. Senator Simidian's bill does make 12 changes to the current statute. We're coming forward to look to just to remove one of those provisions and a modification of another. We think those are reasonable amendments. We've been in conversations with the Senator's office since last November on this issue, and just I hope we can get those amendments into the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alanis. Next witness in opposition.
Joanne Betancourt, representing the Securities Industry and Financial Markets Association. Oppose unless amended. Thank you.
Dennis Sloper with California Association of California Health and Life Insurance Companies and Reed Elsevier. We think that the two amendments are fair and would make the bill a much better bill.
Okay, next witness, please. Chamber of Commerce.
Valerie Nera from California Chamber of Commerce. We are opposed unless amended.
Okay. Any other witnesses in opposition? Mr. Torlakson, are you a witness in opposition? No. Okay. Okay. We have a question from Mr. Calderon.
Yes.
Yes. Does the bill require notice to everyone, whether they're the subject of the breach or not, if they're holding a bank card?
The bill requires a notice to everyone whose security has been breached if they, and this is not the bill that is being proposed, it is the current law, Mr. Calderon. Current law requires that they be noticed if the holder of their data either knows or has reason to believe that their security has been breached. That is existing law, and this bill does not change that existing law.
And then this requires the date and the time.
No, let me correct that. In specific response to previously expressed concerns, the bill does not require that they be told the specific date. Now, members, let me tell you, with the forbearance of the chair, Mr. Chairman, since this issue has been raised by a member of the committee, the previous debate on this subject was, please don't make us tell the date, because if you do that, that might actually help the hacker know what's been successful or not. Now, frankly, I have never thought that was a good argument, because, Mr. Cotto, if you hacked my information, you kind of know that you did it, and you know when you did it, so putting the date information in to help the consumer doesn't really help you as the hacker. But to Mr. Calderon's question, in an effort to find common ground, the language in the bill now specifically says it doesn't have to be the date, it can be the date range or approximation, so that if people think that they need to be a little fuzzy on that issue, they can. Now, why is this important information to the consumer? The reason it's important information to the consumer is if you don't know when something happened, you don't know how to go back and protect yourself. So if you get notice that you've been a victim of data theft, well, you don't know if you're supposed to go back and look at the information from last summer or last month unless we just give you a ballpark estimate of when this incident occurred. So specifically in response to the concerns you heard, even though I frankly think it's pretty clear the person who stole the data knows when they stole the data. But if people were worried about that for some reason, we've now given the accommodation. It's in the language, it's in the bill, and that's a minor error in the staff analysis because it says the date, and we've taken the amendment long ago. In fact, it was in the bill last year that many of you voted for last year.
Thank you, Mr. Smitty. Mr. Senator Nielsen. Mr. John Pettis.
Actually, I believe the senator may have answered my first question, which is the date. So and I'm looking at the bill here, and I can't find it, so I appreciate your clarification.
If we were to look at page 3, that's why you have such capable staff. If we were to look at page 3, line 3, it says the date, estimated date, or date range.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You've already addressed my first concern. My second concern is on page 4. Hang on one second. Page 6 of the bill, and that's the estimated number of persons affected by the breach.
Yes.
That's only if possible to be determined at the time of the notice, correct? So if initially a breach is discovered and it's thought that impacts 1,000 people, later, and they disclose to that 1,000 people, they would have to estimate that number in the notice. If they later find that the breach was broader, they have to continue to refine the number each time they do additional notices.
No, let me give you an odd example, if I may, Mr. Perez. If you were to ask me how many co-authors do I have on SCA 6, right now I'd tell you, well, I have 21 Senate co-authors and 9 Assembly co-authors. A week from now, if you ask me again, I might have a different number. I hope it's higher. I'd tell you what the number was then. It would be accurate each time. I wouldn't have to go back and correct what I told you the first time. I'm giving you the information we have accurately at the time it is given.
Okay. Thank you.
Give the plug for SCA 6, by the way.
That's you. Okay. Mr. Solorio. Okay, gotcha.
You know, I've read the bill. I've heard both sides. I think the amendments being raised are fairly reasonable. I think in terms of the range, as opposed to saying that the specific date would be good, maybe we need to tighten it up so it's not a range of during the course of an entire year, but over a certain period of time. I today, and unless if there's some movement to address those 2 amendments, don't feel like it's support the bill. That's on the point of the date range.
Mr. Sawyer, could I just, because you may have been distracted, that language, the bill does not require the date, as indicated.
I read that. It says the date, estimated date, or date range. Okay. I think just date range would be good. I know I've heard today and in separate meetings from some of the opposition that there's concern about liability if you don't do the date and state a date range. I know here's someone that could probably speak more to that point. So I think you have a good bill. There's a lot that your bill does. This is one area that may open up an issue of litigation, unnecessary litigation for the business community that I think could be avoided if we just have a date range. The bill acknowledges that a date range would be sufficient. The bill acknowledges the date range would be sufficient, so why not just leave the date range? Then with respect to the other item about telling consumers how they're specifically going to address future breaches, that's like with national security saying, even though at a much grander level, saying, if something happens, we need to tell everybody exactly how it's going to be prevented in the future. Well, sometimes that, you don't want it.
Mr. Sloyer, could you point me to the language you're concerned about on the second point? Because I don't believe the bill requires that.
Well, I mean, maybe the opposition could speak to that, but I do believe it's.
And on the first point, sir, if I may, through the chair, again, we've given the institution the option of going with the date range, but to take out date or estimated date so that they have a reminder that if that's information they can and would like to provide, it would be helpful to the consumer, does no harm to the folks who are concerned about having the flexibility for date range, but does then point to the fact that if people can and would like to share the actual date, that is the most useful thing.
I think there's liability issues, and maybe the opposition can speak to that.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I'm Gene Livingston on behalf of State Farm, and I appreciate what Senator Smitty and
thinks his bill does with respect to the date. But when you look at the actual language, it doesn't do that at all. What it says is you're to provide the date, the estimated date, or the date range if that information is available at the time that the notice is sent. Now, a court's going to look at that and say, if you know the precise date, you got to provide that precise date. Now, that's not what Senator Smidian says he wants to accomplish, but that's what the language does.
Mr. Smidian, what I want to prevent right now, it's 10:45. I want to put a stop to the colloquies that are taking place right now. I would give a strong recommendation to Mr. Smidian that we hold this bill over. Let's work out a few of these kinks, if they're possible to work out, and we move forward. I think there has been some very divergent points of views on this committee with regards to this measure. I believe that the spirit of the measure everyone has concurred with regards to consumer protections and the needed safeguards and the parameters for those individuals whose data has been breached electronically by unsavory characters, if you will. I commend you because you've been one of the strongest leaders, if not the strongest leader, in the California State Legislature when it comes to privacy issues and the breach of data. My recommendation would be that we hold this measure for right now temporarily. We continue these conversations, and then in the very near future, we revisit this issue back again in committee. What I'd like to do, Mr. Smidian, if it's fine with you, is go to SB 832, your committee bill. This is a bill that was double referred to Rev and Tax. That is Mr. Calderon. It was supposed to be double referred to Rev and Tax, Mr. Calderon, but unfortunately it was inadvertently sent to this committee first, the Appropriations Committee. Upon passage of this committee bill, which is my recommendation for due pass, it will not go to the floor, but it will go to Mr. Calderon's committee in Rev and Tax.
Mr. Chairman, could I have, I am, of course, guided by your wisdom in terms of holding the previous measure over. Could I make two brief clarifying
Yes, you may. And then I would say you'll be making those comments, no other witnesses in support or opposition, those comments, and then we'll go on to SB 832.
On the issue of date, estimated date, or date range, I believe that Mr. Livingston's reading of the language is wrong. He believes my reading of the language is wrong. I am happy to make an amendment, take an amendment to the bill that keeps all three of those items in the bill, but that, as he has just requested in public in front of you, makes it clear that any one of those three will be satisfactory if that information is available. So I am responding to the direct concern that has been articulated by the members. I will take an amendment that clarifies the language in that way. As to the second concern about providing information about how folks are going to deal with these problems in the future, I want to underscore that information is at the discretion of the person who's lost the data. So if they don't think it's appropriate to share that information precisely for the reasons that Assemblymember Solorio articulated, they don't have to. The bill won't require them to do that. And I gather there's been some buzz, Mr. Chairman, that I am intending to make that language mandatory rather than discretionary. Nothing could be further from the truth, and I'm saying that out loud in your committee so you all know that. And I thank you for your forbearance.
Okay, thank you very much. I have not heard that buzz. I don't know who is the originator of that, but I want to thank you, Mr. Smidian, for making those clarifying comments. Let's go to SB 832.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, this year's effort, as you know, these measures are designed to contain provisions that update, clarify, and make non-controversial changes to various programs to increase effective program implementation.
Mr. Smidian, we have a motion that's been made by Mr. Solorio. It's been seconded by Mr. Amiano. Do we have any witnesses in support? Seeing none. Well, I saw someone jump. No? Witnesses in opposition? Seeing none also, too. We have a motion that has been made by Mr. Solorio, has been seconded by Mr. Amiano. This is a measure that will pass this committee on an A roll call. It will go to Rev and Tax as double referral. Mr. Smidian, I thank you for your patience. We will continue to work. Feel free to call my office, and then we'll continue these conversations with the other stakeholders.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you all to the members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smidian. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Members, we just have our consent calendar. We have 10 measures before us today. On the consent calendar, I have a motion that's been made by Mr. We pulled one, that is Mr. Runner. It does not include in the aggregate the total number of consent bills. We have a motion that's been made by Mr. Cotto, has been seconded by Mr. Mike Duvall. The consent calendar passes. Members, this concludes the business before this committee today. Committee is adjourned.